welcome to the Easily Excitable podcast. My name is Top, and with me this week is Russell. Hey man, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself, good sir?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's been a frantic 2 days at work so far this week. The rest of the week is just gonna get more hectic. I had a meeting this afternoon with my boss and like our IT consultant person. And as soon as I went over, there was like a big issue where they had to fix something, so I wasn't immediately needed. So I went through the notebook that I took with me and collated everything that I know I have left to do this week and put it into a new list. So I have now have a list of things I need to do for the rest of the week because I've only got the rest of this week until I'm off for 3 months. So I need to make sure everything's in place and everyone knows what to do. So it's been a very hectic 2 days. Actually, last few weeks have been real hectic. I hosted the
It's
management review last week, and yeah,
it's been very interesting because kind of when I've left jobs previously, kind of I had one which had like a 3 month notice period. So effectively, kind of like during that time, it's kind of like you're winding everything down. You're trying to get everything handed off to people before obviously systems are 1 month, and you generally never want it to fail after you've left. But there's still kind of that you're not coming back. So if a bit of attention to detail is missed somewhere, then for you it's kind of like, oh shit, whoops, maybe it doesn't really matter. But
yeah,
you're going back in like 3 months, so it's kind of forget something or yeah, just because you are, no offense, you are going to forget something. Like
oh yeah.
no
There's
matter
things
no
I'm
matter
gonna forget.
how well you plan, and you think that you know everything, you're going to forget something.
Yeah,
But it's because you've got to go back in 3 months and just remember whether people are going to be like, "You little bastard, you forgot to tell us this one thing," and it
yeah,
could be like the most important thing, or you could have just forgotten one thing and it's like a really minor, trivial thing, and it doesn't make any difference. But I'm very interesting discussing when you'll go back after your 3 months, what the first couple of weeks are like, whether it's
yeah.
oh shit, basically I don't know what's going on in this office anymore because it's moved so far in 3 months, or it's just
Oh,
like,
it's
oh, it's
exactly
staying the
where I was
same.
when I left off, and nobody did anything.
Yeah, that's the potential other aspect.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting time because yeah, 3 months away to go back to the office is just gonna be really interesting. But that's uh
Life
that's
experiences.
what I've got to deal with. Yeah, life experience coming up. So I'm really looking forward to that. Um, as such, I've just been spending my time outside of work, chilling out. I spent probably 2.5 hours just tidying up yesterday, just making sure my apartment was tidy and clean, and yeah, getting the bag sort of packed with everything in there that needs to be in there, then realizing that I need some of the stuff. And yeah, it's a real interesting time. So I'm just trying my best to just manage everything that's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's
So
all going to
that's
be
crazy.
the good test I always go for is how long it takes on obviously it's kind of a holiday, a long plan, but basically how long it takes until you realize you've haven't brought something you need. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter how like small or kind of like how major it actually is, or it could just be kind of like you can get all the way to the morning afterwards and then on the evening and go like, oh, shit, I didn't bring any toothpaste, or like
Yeah,
what's that? how well you've prepared is kind of how long that goes out till you get to that point, I think. But
yeah, yeah. Well, I like list out so many things. That's just like something I do, and the parts of the list I've probably been putting together for like 2 or 3 weeks. And every time I think of something, it's always in my bag. So like my bag goes with me everywhere. It's like at work, at home. That like the book stays in the bag even if I'm at home and need to have it out. I'll like write what I need in it, and then it goes back in the bag. And then if I'm out anywhere, it's like at least in my car, if not on my back. And like yeah, it's always available to add things to should I need to, and it's usually it's I don't know. I just list everything all the time.
like something you talk about always for like being prepared for things. I had kind of a humorous incident a couple of weekends ago. I went up to visit my sister in Newcastle, and I
Hmm.
took my usual bag that I have in, and in that bag I have a CO2 pump for my bike. So instead of kind of like having to cart round like a bike pump or anything like that, I just make sure that that's
Yeah.
in the bottom of the bag and it's just a quick like CO2. So the canister's like a couple of inches big. You just plug it on and
Hmm.
it forces it on. Well, I forgot that that's in the bottom of my bag. That's always been in the bottom of my bag. And we went to go watch a
Hmm.
cricket match, and obviously took the bag with, and then it's kind of they get searched because yes, this is the current climate where everything gets searched. I've got no issues with that.
Yeah.
But it was just like it's like, oh yeah, what's this? And I was just like, oh yeah, that's a CO2 canister. And he's like, yeah, you're not gonna be allowed that in there. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. I perfectly
Hmm.
get it and understood it, but I was like, this is me being prepared to kind of have that in case I need it. But I was so
Hmm.
prepared about that that I'd forgotten that I have it anymore, and so forgot to take it out for something
Yeah.
that then mean that it could have got searched, and then it was just like, well, there it goes. I'll get another one. but
Hmm.
but it was like there was me being too prepared for something else, and then completely forgetting about what I needed to do right now, which would have been to take it out.
Yeah. Hmm. Ah, crazy, crazy. Yeah, like, yeah, I've just been planning like meticulously. I just need to tidy, and like I might have tidied for 2.5 hours, but that was tidying. I didn't do any like proper cleaning. I need to do a proper Hoover and like all that nonsense housework that I've been putting off for the past 2 or 3 months
Hire a
because I'm like,
cleaner.
I'm going away. It's like,
Hire a
oh,
cleaner. Just get somebody to come in and do a proper job just before you bugger off.
yeah, I know that'd be the thing to do, but I like, it's too short notice. I go away in a week, and I need to
Yeah.
have a bunch of things done by then.
So apart
And
from
cleaning is just part of that routine. So,
so apart from fretting and planning your release, how much time therefore has it allowed you to get into D2 or Destiny 2, however the kids are calling it
oh,
nowadays?
too much, too much. Oh, the only thing I've got left to do is the raid, but that doesn't speak much to either how much I've played the game or how little there is to do in the game. So the campaign itself, I thought was a bit lackluster. It took about it took two solid sessions of about 3 to 4 hours each. So it took about 7 to 8 hours to run through the main campaign.
Was that as a
Um,
single player, or was that like, can you do that with people?
you
Excuse
can
my
do it
complete no
multiplayer.
knowledge.
No, it's fine. You can do it as multiplayer, but you can also like the first two missions, and then there's a subsequent one mission if you want an extra subclass. Have to be done single player. So you play for about an hour solo, and then it opens up for multiplayer to be accessible, and then you can play with people going through the game. When you do have people with you, it is a lot faster as well.
Yeah.
Just because it spawns a certain amount of enemies, and it doesn't particularly scale well to multiple people. Um, and that's just part of the game anyway. But yeah, it takes about, I'd say, between 6 and 8 hours. Other people might put a higher number of hours. And it was sort of satisfying. It was an all right game. I enjoyed playing through it, but then you get to the end game of the game and you realize, oh, there's strikes to do which aren't that great. They're like, yeah, we're trying to avoid bullet sponges. So they have one of the bosses has quite a bit of health, but after you take away about 10% of his health, just disappears, vanishes, and then will turn up later. So that is kind of like, mm, still sort of bullet spongy because he just disappears too easily.
Yeah.
And then there's other bosses which are actually well planned and they're good, although they don't pop up in rotation that much. I've played probably 20 strikes, and one strike has only come up once. So and there's only like 4 or 5 or 6 in the game. I actually don't know the number of how many strikes there are, and those are like match made 3-person activities. So there's
Okay.
always two other people in there.
And assuming you
Or
can
you can
choose
run
who
it
those
with
two
two other
people,
people.
yeah, you can run it with two other
Uh,
people,
you can run it with two people, or it will matchmake two people with you.
yeah.
So yeah, that they're always going to be there. And then like that's a way to increase your power level. The power level is currently capped at 305, and you typically end the campaign between 180 and 200. So there's a bit of a grind there. And then there's like public events in the public spaces or on locations, and the locations are quite big areas, and you can fast travel between areas, which is an improvement over Destiny One.
Yep.
And public events show up on the map. They're things like kill this enemy or defeat this event or destroy this tank, and there's modifiers for each of them as well. So if you meet certain criteria, it'll trigger a heroic version of that event where
Okay.
the goal of the event changes to something else. And they're a good way to get like to increase your power level. I'm trying to think of other things. There's PvP, so player versus player, in the Crucible, which is okay. There's a high emphasis on teamwork in it as well. They've switched from a 6v6 or 3v3 to a flat 4v4 modes across the board.
Okay.
Which has which has changed the emphasis. They've increased the time to kill, like 1v1, to what it was in Destiny, which has forced a higher reliance on teamwork as well. And that's really interesting in that me and Bear and no, Bear is Stefan.
Ewan?
Stefan, Ewan, and no, a guy called Bound, Alex, or Bound, yeah, Bound, and we teamed up last night and took on the Trials of the Nine, which is the like end game PvP competitive mode that there is, and the game mode that was there was Countdown, which is where you set a bomb, much like Seek and Destroy in Call of Duty,
Okay, yeah.
and then you've got
Good
to
old
defend it.
Counter-Strike, yeah.
Yeah, and it's first to 6 rounds, which means there can be 11 rounds,
Bloody
each of which
hell.
each of which can last 2 minutes. And the idea is you win 7 in a row to get like the best rewards. And we in like it
Okay,
doesn't
so
take that long. It's a fast paced mode, somewhat. But if you were to win every round and not drop a round, you've got 42 rounds. Like, and if you go to time each round, that's 84. No, yeah, that's right,
maximum
84
84
minutes.
minutes.
No, minimum 84 minutes if it goes to time, and you've only gone 6 rounds in each one, winning each one. But you can go to 11 rounds because it can go up to 6-5 because it's first to six.
Yeah, but then as soon as you lose basically one individual thing, if you got to, is it 7 in a row
No,
to
no,
get
you've got to win. You've got to win 7 matches, but each match is made up of
11? Yeah, okay.
up to 11 rounds.
Yeah.
So it can get into like astronomical times to win 7 straight. But we dropped 1 round to the first team, 1 round to the second team, 2 rounds to the next 2 teams, 1 round to the fifth team, and then 6-0 to the other 2 teams that we played, like in matches 6 and 7. So we had a real efficient time, and got through it all in about an hour. But that's also including matchmaking times and just general loading times as well.
So you
So the
think
whole
that
thing is
probably,
focused around. Mhm.
would you probably guess that the people you were playing against weren't basically in a group of 4 most of the times, or
Yes,
are
yeah.
you
So
just that
that
much better than the?
but the guys I play with typically are very good. They're very good at games. And the um what you can tell is like if you people play in clans and they have clan tags, and if you come up against a random team made of people with different clan tags, it's more likely that their teamwork and communication is going to be not great.
Yeah.
The fact that the mode isn't match made as well, you have to go in with a pre-made team,
Oh, okay.
makes it so that you could be playing with people you don't know, having picked them up off an online service to group you together,
Hmm.
which means that the group of us who play together very regularly,
Yep.
like coming up against teams that are random and could be anywhere and have any number of like games under their belt together. It could be their first game together, or it could be their 20th game together. But if they haven't had that history of playing together, coming up against a team like us, where we're all like we know our callouts and what everyone typically plays like and how to play together, then we're pretty much gonna steamroll them. There are teams that we come up against and we're gonna have a hard time because there'll be ones that are people that play together much like we do.
Yeah.
And those ones are the difficult games. Luckily, we didn't face any of those last night, but when we were on at the weekend, oh no, when we were on the first weekend up, we came up against a guy. So there's a famous YouTuber called Datto who does Destiny videos basically.
Hmm.
And he has a clan called Math Class, and we went up against one of his clan groups. So everyone was in the Math Class clan, and they beat us 6-5. But I checked their stats afterwards, and they'd played like 20 games and hadn't dropped a single game. So like, or like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a single full game. And like we pushed them hard, but like unfortunately we just didn't beat them. But like when you're playing against teams like that, you'd expect to come up, but like against
That's
that kind of
difficulties.
result, yeah. And that was a challenge in time, but like our teamwork's improved since then because in Destiny 1, teams were 3 rather than 4 people. So we've had to accommodate and change to playing in 4s. But it seems to suit me better as well, especially with the longer time to kill. Um, However, the whole game is interesting. There's always things to do, and it it cycles around each week what like target location has activities on.
Yeah.
So there's always things to do. There's always people to play with. But at this point in time, I probably wouldn't recommend anyone get it because it feels like it's flat. It doesn't feel like there's enough to do. There's definitely things to do all the time, but they are repetitive.
So you feel like you're
Um,
grinding more. You feel like you've got getting a slightly different flavor of exactly the same thing again and again
yes,
and again.
exactly. You're seeing the same things pop up again and again, and all you're really doing is chasing power levels, which at this point in time don't matter. Um,
But yeah,
when
so
the
what's
hard
like the
raid
power
comes
level
out, it
needed for
might
like the
matter.
first raid then? Or what's the
Uh,
recommended power level?
so the recommended power level is 270.
And you're saying you can go up to
And
305 at the moment.
you can go up to 305. The prestige or heroic mode, whichever they're going to call it, is probably going to be at 300. The prestige for the nightfall is 300, but the nightfall itself was only, oh, was it 240? So that's like a 3-person strike.
Yep.
But that's not match made. And you need to like team up to do that. And then there's criteria. You need to complete it in a certain amount of time.
Yeah, okay.
And
So I guess kind of
it's
you're saying
really
it's kind of
interesting.
like there are things to do each week, but they
Hmm.
are slightly repetitive. But then to
Yep.
get the most out of playing this game, you need to do those like repetitive things. So effectively,
Yes.
you almost need to sync what we say, play it every day, or are you saying that probably to get the best
You
out of it?
definitely need to go on it every week. For me, I don't know how much I actually played over the weekend when I wasn't playing with my team, trying to like play some competitive PvP.
Yep.
Um, I'm already at the point where I'm like, I don't really want to play that much. And given that it's not been out for a month, that's concerning.
Yep.
Um, because when the previous DLCs came out, there was always gear to search for, and just things to do to keep myself entertained in game.
I
Now
guess
I
it's
feel
still
like I've
finding its feet again with kind of what it's done this time, but it's still has it maybe not learnt from the good things that it did from Taking
yeah,
King and the good things that it did
exactly.
from
So what it feels like is that they've been like, oh, Destiny 1's release was all right. We needed to make these improvements, and then we made these subsequent improvements throughout the DLCs. But it feels like they've applied what they needed to apply from the Destiny 1 release to the first DLC, the improvements there, and then what followed in the first year before the Taken King. All those quality of life improvements seem to be in the game. But anything after that doesn't seem to be in the game. There seems to be like a lack of things, like the quest system that they had in Destiny 2 that was introduced with in Destiny 1 when the Taken King was introduced. It would give you a list of like what step you're on a quest, what like what things you need to do for the quest, and it was under its own tab, and like it was easy to track and follow and do multiple like have multiple quests going on at the same time. Whereas now you've got to open up a certain menu and then look at the side, and you've got to remember that you're doing certain quests because you have an item in a certain slot, say like in one of your weapon slots, rather than a notification hanging around for it. Um, it all just feels as though they've learned some things and implemented them, but there's other things that they made towards the end of Destiny 1, like in year 3, once Rise of Iron had come out, that made that game really enjoyable to just keep playing for hours and hours and hours because there were things to do, things to collect. The weapon rolls were random. Now all the weapon rolls are fixed. If you get a gun, it's always going to have the same roll on it, so it's always going to do the same thing.
Okay.
Um, and overall, it just feels like it's a bit flat and thin. And I kind of wasn't expecting that
So I
when I went into it.
so to me it feels like you've got I don't fully understand the way that game development works, but just going from kind of like software and anything else like that, you've got the almost like the Destiny one's path and the all of the changes that have happened on that, and
Yeah.
Destiny 2 has diverged off that like just before the end, so effectively they can start to build and change everything that they want kind of going forward with that, but effectively you
Mhm.
don't have the last set of changes thrown into D2. And I'm assuming it's probably more around of a timing sort of thing. Maybe they didn't have kind of like if how long they've been
Yeah.
building and planning this. I think I think with a lot of these games nowadays is they want to get something out there that
Mhm.
is relatively stable
Yep.
and has people entertained for a while. From what I've seen, just purely from the outside, I've seen all the graphics of kind of like what's landing this week and what's landing next week. So it's kind of trying to at least keep you semi-informed about kind of what the big things that are coming over the next few weeks, so you can
Yeah.
kind of be interested in those. But most of those didn't really go much beyond kind of like week 6. I saw
No, they just did to week 4,
into week 4 even, yeah. So when the
to the
raid
end
went
of
live.
next week. No, the raid went live 2 weeks ago. Um, and the guided games goes live this week, and this is the last week that they had on their calendar.
Okay.
And so, but it looks like they're doing it month by month,
Yeah.
which is what which it makes sense. And then yeah, the problem is with it, like, is they made a bunch of changes to Destiny 1, and it was like, oh, this is real good, but it's the changes from like the Taken King onwards that seem to be missing. But the Taken King was released 2 years ago,
Yeah.
so it's like you've
You'd
made all
think
these
in a dev
changes.
cycle that you should have been able to get some of that involved. Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
probably right there. 2 years is a little bit too long to get that. So
yeah. There are
to
some things that do work. Like from after the Taken King, they had an infusion system, which like you could upgrade, like put one item into another. And initially, that was only like 80% of the power level was converted in the infusion. That was later changed to 100%, so it matched identically. And that's the same system that we're seeing in Destiny 2. But it's other systems that seem to be lacking. And it's just overall, it now isn't the actual time for new players to get in the game because it feels like it's real flat and there's not enough to do.
which is a very interesting thing to say. I would be so interested, and we are never going to see these figures. Bungie are never going to put this out there unless
Mm-hmm.
it's invariably in their favor. But I would be
Uh-huh.
so keen to know the people who have not played Destiny 1 or partially played Destiny 1 that have
Mm-hmm.
picked up D2 or Destiny 2 and have played it for 4 weeks and then maybe continue to play it afterwards. Because
Mm-hmm.
from the outside, I can only see people who played the game, played Destiny 1, playing Destiny 2 and talking about it kind of like and playing it and considering a lot. There I think again I see a few people who dip their toes slightly into Destiny and have dipped their toes slightly into Destiny 2 and have gone, similar sort of issues, it's not really the game for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a next gen console when like Destiny kind of like first came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked one up probably when it had been around for maybe 3 or 4 months, and by then the overwhelming opinion was meh. It was kind of like
Yeah.
there were the people who enjoyed it, and there were in overall they were saying don't really touch it. So we kind of like never did. I do have it. I've tried to play it like because I sort of thought this should be the sort of game that I should like,
Yeah.
but I kind of like I played it. I enjoyed it at times, but it was then going like, I personally I don't have, or maybe don't want to spend every single week playing the same game to kind of get the most out of it. And then it's
Yeah.
like if the game
Mhm.
is almost like forcing me to play it weekly so I can
Mhm.
actually do more with the game, it's then kind of going, well, this isn't the game for me. And I think that's where it sits. Like I've never really been involved in those massively multi online player sort of games because I can't say that I want to or will be able to play a game like every week for a year. Even say I could play 80% of the weeks for a year because it's got to be pretty fucking amazing if it's making me come back like every single week. Like
Yep.
we've discussed it before, probably even on this and there's so many other times. I'm a fucking computer game whore. Like I'll play 10 hours on a
Mhm.
game which I think is going to be the greatest game ever, and
Mhm.
then I'll get annoyed by one smallish to medium thing, and I'll put it to the side, and I'll start something else that maybe I've had for a while and never really got round to, or maybe it's been a game that I benched 2 years ago because I got pissed off with it, and go like, actually no, this is a good game. Everybody else has said it's a good game. Go and actually play it to the full time. That to me there are just so many other games out there that devoting so much time to an individual game when even the people who are seemingly doing this are telling me, yeah, you probably don't want to come and join us, even though I'm kind of having fun, it still kind of feels slightly grindy. It's very interesting for me to kind of think, so you say kind of don't join if you're new, you have that
Mhm.
ecosystem, but why are you still in the ecosystem? Why are the people kind of like still in the ecosystem? You're like I've talked to quite a few people around this, and they've given almost exactly the same opinion of what you've said here. Is that if you enjoy Destiny, you're probably going to enjoy this. It's not quite there in a lot of regards. There was
Mhm.
a lot of kerfuffle around shading, if I remember correctly, on the first few days
Yeah,
and
shaders
changes.
for things, which is all nonsense. Like I didn't understand the justification for people's rage on that. Like, didn't make any sense.
As far as I'm concerned, the modern gaming world is basically willing to go to go to the storms on anything involving microtransactions or could
Yeah.
potentially involve microtransactions, even though
Mhm.
it's, as far as I was aware, entirely cosmetic.
Yep.
So
It is.
and so it's kind of, well, yeah, you pay to make your character look as beautiful or pretty as if you want, or grind the 10 raids or the 10 things to kind of get that color that you want so you can change it to all of your things instead of having to only get one. Didn't make a difference to me, but then I'm not directly involved, so I think I said but it's you have this what you're even describing as an incomplete product.
Yep.
Why are you still playing it?
I don't know. For me, like my friends are in there, so and it's a good time to socialize and play with them. That is the main
This is
reason.
almost this is a vehicle for your social interaction,
Yeah.
and less actually maybe about the game, but effectively at the moment it is the current vehicle for your social interaction.
Yeah.
I say like
Yeah. Exactly.
I'd love to see like the dip in potentially if there's been a dip in like Overwatch users on console, especially in the
hmm
recent time because of Destiny. Because a lot of the people I
Yeah.
found that were very into Destiny also kind of liked Overwatch because of the cooperative kind of like play style towards it, and that definitely kind of feels the same. So I wonder if there's been any significant decreases in that
Yeah.
regard. Because
Yeah. I'd be interested to see that as well. Considering they're both under Activision as well, like I'm sure that they wouldn't be like too concerned about that. But also, they were both like Bungie were boasting that they did have 1.2 million concurrent players on the first weekend it was out, which is quite some feat. But at the same time, like
I, to me, first
that's
weekend numbers are just pointless. It's
that's
just like everybody's
yeah
bought it. You're gonna play it like that first weekend. It's especially for a multiplayer game. It's longevity. It's like Christ. We're looking at PUBG becoming the most simultaneously played game on Steam ever, which is utterly ridiculous. When I don't have a PC that's good enough to play it, but I still don't get how everybody seems to be so enamored with it when it's
Hmm.
effectively one of the simple game, well, the simplest sort of game styles imaginable. It's just a battle royale, which is not clunky, and it's so.
Yeah.
And then there's
It's
all the,
certainly interesting.
and then now we have all the hoo ha between uh the makers of that and the makers of Fortnite, who have basically gone, oh wait, let's just basically change our game, which is just a huge sandbox, to be almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And now they're just going, oh no, we're going to sue you, and it's like, you're going to sue somebody for a game type? Are you seriously? When
That's
effectively you made this game, Player Unknown basically made this game, as far as I'm aware, from doing like King of the Hill in H1Z1. So it's like, well, you made this game in a different game, then left
yeah.
that company, then made the game again in its kind of own right, and now you're trying to sell someone and like, no, you can't have a genre. It's like, no, there can only be one first-person shooter. There can only be one third-person shooter. There can only be one first-person shooter where you're on a team, or one first-person shooter where you're by yourself. It's kind of, I don't know if it's just one of those uh, threats that you just kind of say and don't actually do anything, because that's kind of half the way the modern world works. Go like, I don't like you for doing something, and I'm gonna threaten that I'm going to sue you. Not actually. I'm just
Hmm.
making sure that kind of like I'm kind of protecting my intellectual property by saying this, but I'm not actually gonna do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's just such a strange state of the world we're in right now, and like the gaming world particularly is just a bit of a mess, and it kind of exemplifies like, oh, like you can release something that's good, but if the community like for PUBG, like if the community around it is supportive, like it'll work. But like in Destiny, immediately there was uproar, like, oh, how dare you do this, like over a game that we didn't fully understand, and immediately the anger on the missteps initially were like subsided, and now we're looking at the game where so far it's been out for 3 weeks. We've had three to 6 hour maintenance periods on Mondays. Like the game needed fixing, and it's just like I don't know. It's just a strange way that it is right now. But yeah, I don't really know where to go from there.
No, and it's just, like I say, it's looking for outrage, and I think it's a symptom of a larger picture that exists in the current world climate. I've got a question for you around kind of like online multiplayer games. Like, how
Hmm.
much do you play like with open kind of like chat settings and open message settings, where effectively like when
No.
you play in raids, so you don't hear the
Like if you're playing raids, nightfalls, or like competitive multiplayer, I would have a dedicated team, a dedicated group of friends.
yep,
Like if you do those things, you have to communicate. So like I would team up with, say, I joined a clan online for Destiny One in the last year, or maybe the last year and a half of Destiny One's life cycle, and through there I met a bunch of people, and I would chat to them and like introduce myself there. But in game itself, through like just strike playlists and general player versus player, I would not have my microphone on at all, because I just wouldn't interact with randoms in that way unless I've specifically sought people out who I know are going to be similarly aligned to either my skill level or like my sensibilities as to how I want to play the game.
yeah, and I think it's kind of it's for me my introduction to playing like online multiplayer games is generally through like the first person shooter world. So
Hmm.
fairly quickly decided this is not the environment which I fancy playing a computer game in, because
Hmm.
as far as I'm concerned, even though I am probably the white middle class British male, so I have no prejudice that could probably be lynched against me, it's kind of
Hmm.
I don't enjoy or want to hear people using the N word or telling me that my mother has been shagged by them, or uh, and and it's still every time I like dip my toe into some of them and I put the open channels on, it still exists, and it kind of
Yeah.
feels that I can't. I abandoned that world years ago. I was just like, I'm not playing these games anymore just because I just don't want. If I want to play a game online, I might do it in a scenario where I'm doing it with friends only. And to be fair, I did dip the toe in with Overwatch. I tried to play like competitive Overwatch and just pretty much open up the channel and talk to people as you're kind of doing that. And I would say for that, I would say that was probably a 95% decent experience. But then
Hmm.
it's still a 1 in 20 where it's just like, oh, what the fuck are you doing? Oh my god, you fucking idiot! Like, heal me! And I'm just like, fuck off, you're the Genji who's running off into the front row and shouting, heal me. I'm just like, and I play Overwatch just pretty much as support only. So
Yeah.
it was amazing to get verbal abuse effectively when you're playing the support character was just utterly phenomenal. And I would go like,
Yeah.
and it's good to the point where I can't. Games are obviously trying. These games are trying to bring people together, but it almost means that to me that unless you're in a group of people already,
Hmm.
this these games aren't gonna make people be brought together because of the game. They're just bringing groups of friends that already exist into a game.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems more like if one person in a group's going to get a game, you're more likely to get people team up from that and multiple people buy the game to play together rather than random people team up and find themselves within the game to group together,
Yeah, and
if
then
that makes sense.
if they do group together, they then continue to play together multiple times afterwards, and may then chat in kind of some things, and then maybe become
Yeah.
friends via that way. Like I
Yeah.
just don't. That obviously still does happen in some regards, but I don't see
Hmm.
that happening. I don't see
Yeah.
an individual games community doing that,
Yeah,
which I
I
think
don't
is
see a
some.
prevalence of that occurring. I see a lot of prevalence of like online matchmaking services where you can find a clan of people, like-minded people, and join from there rather than doing it in game. But
Yeah, and so
that's
then
just
it's the point of kind of
me.
like, hey, we've met through an online community.
Yeah, we have.
So, and that exists for watching kind of content, which is something that we both enjoy, and it's become as an initial discussion point, and then we've gone on to discuss many different things around there.
Yeah.
Why are games deliberately avoiding this, or is it something that they're struggling to do because they can't quite find the right way to do it? Because you've got so many different like online communities for let's play channels or especially in like the let's play environment, like people who watch content or streamers, they're all like in the communities, and then you get like community streaming, or you get like they'll kind of so you can go and play online with them. Rooster Teeth does it with their PUBG ones. I've watched a couple of friends do that and watch kind of like with them
Hmm.
at the same time. So it's something which can be done with games, but it doesn't seem to me that the people who are running the games are trying to do that. And I wonder why, because I'm wondering kind of like to me like it could be an amazing selling point for kind of going like is it we are at the point now where people make friends online. So
Yes,
it's kind of like
we're
why not.
absolutely in that
Yeah, but
stage of
it's still
the
a
stage
foreign
of the
concept
world.
to kind of like people over a certain age and depending on
Yeah.
kind of like where
Hmm.
they are. But to most people who are going to be playing these games, kind of like if a game said like make friends while playing this game, would you immediately distrust what it's kind of like its aims were, or would you find it weird or bizarre that the game was saying like, hey, yeah, come play the game, make friends? Does it feel weird or creepy or?
Yeah, I don't know, even know how to like consider that. Like, it's not. Yeah, it's nothing I've really considered as like something that would come up from a game itself. I would say, yeah, I don't know, because most times when you're approaching things, you're not starting with a basis of look. Specifically, us, we're not starting as a basis of having zero friends. You'd have like a surrounding of friends and people that you could interact with. Um, I don't really know what point I was trying to make there.
It's fine.
Oh no.
I just think it's interesting because kind of like you definitely look at the way that communities for definitely kind of like content which is being created like for viewing or so be it streaming or let's plays or even the rest of the stuff that Red versus Blue, the stuff that like Rooster Teeth have done. It's like
Yeah.
hey, you're watching this, you're enjoying this, which to me would then be the same as hey, you're playing a game, you're enjoying it.
Mhm.
giving the opportunity for then like-minded people to converse with each other. I guess that's maybe what Destiny's trying to do with some of its social areas,
Mhm.
but then there doesn't then seem to be too much of a jump from, hey, or kind of like we've played a couple of matchmaking things together, or we've chatted a little bit here.
Mhm.
Let's play a little bit more together, and I kind of like that within kind of like the being pushed by the game itself. Like you've said that there are online matchmaking things that's outside of Destiny to help you
Yeah.
do that. We both know guys who do. We know the same guy who does a lot of lore with regards to Destiny, which is maybe kind
Yeah.
of like that's pulling a load of people who are Destiny fans together to then kind of they may make friendships groups on that side,
Mhm.
but it's not something that Destiny or Bungie themselves are actively pushing. Whereas for a lot of online channels like Rooster Teeth or pushing their community is kind of like one of the main things that they actually kind of like strive to do. And
Yeah.
I wonder
Mhm.
whether a game like Destiny could do better by making that smaller community like really happy and really friendly with each other and just you get start having 1.1 million users on the first week and then having like 100 just 100,000 for the weeks afterwards. You could
Yeah.
solidly have like 400,000 or half a million every single week. If you put more time
Yeah.
into making them happy and making them feel like more of a community, what could do that? Like, I don't. So correct me if I'm wrong or anything. Is there anything to kind of say like whose clan is the best?
No, there are no clan leaderboards.
So would a clan leaderboard system make you play the game more, or would the clan leaderboard system make you play the game less? If you could kind of say like, let's push to kind of like make our clan like higher up on the list, or
Um, I don't know. Like, it depends on like how you'd categorize it as well.
yeah,
Like,
there's a lot of nuances to kind of
it's
determine kind of like how you score
yeah.
points or some sort of combined
I
light
mean,
level and then
it
PvP
definitely
scores or raid times, so
it
you can kind of say like who's the fastest person with the raid or like two-person raid or three-person raid or this special kind of quirk to
yeah.
the raid. Like,
It certainly like put an emphasis on achieving things. However, I have a feeling that'd lead to certain people like stacking up the top of the leaderboards and like other people in the community themselves being like, "Oh, I'm good, but I'd never be that good," and discouraging people from playing. As they'd be like, "Oh, there's these people who are excellent at this game. I don't know why I should bother play it."
so that's the thing, 'cause,
Um,
like obviously like
yeah.
Overwatch has the competitive play, so therefore you have
Mhm.
the obviously like the rankings that exist of that, and like I don't know what percentage of like say love to have so much data access to the gaming world, but it's obviously always
Yeah.
it's a closed system. It's never gonna let the shit out. But like, what percentage of game time like for Overwatch is actually like competitive play compared to free play or all the different modes?
Mhm.
Or because kind of yeah, that's managed to roll out the competitive play. I think at a reasonable level where you kind of like you get a score and you want to kind of like slowly improve yourself and kind of work to kind of get towards something there. And there are kind of like perks for getting like higher up on that scoreboard like every now and then, and it's kind of cool to say like, oh, I'm diamond or I'm gold or I only got to
Yeah.
kind of like silver last time, I've managed to get to gold this time. So it's something which Blizzard are doing in a game as well, so Activision, so it feels like it's something they could transition across, but like you say, is it something that would work in Destiny or
I don't think it would work in Destiny unless you're to say like implement like a leveling system, or as they had before, like at the end of Taking King towards the release of Rise of Iron, they started implementing record books, and what you could do with record books was track progress against a whole number of different objectives. But there's no system like that in the game right now, so there's no way to track like your completion of the game other than knowing what there is to do and how to do it. Um, if they were to have put that in initially, and it would have been like finish the campaign, get all of the subclasses, get X amount of kills with this character class, collect this many weapons, collect this many exotic weapons or armors, like, and fill out your collection, because I don't have an idea on how many exotic armors and weapons there are in the game. I've got the ones I want, so I'm not even looking for any more at this point in time. Um, like, and just collect all the things, like,
So that's almost
and
like achievement hunting,
obtain.
but with like within the game when it's not even like there maybe not even like specific achievements for it. It's just like it's your standard like collection of.
It just gives you things to do, and then you could just have that tiered as well. And like, have it tiered, so like 10 kills, 50 kills with certain types of weapons, increase your, like, or contribute towards your clan rank at using certain particular kind of weapons and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just like implementing that kind of thing. It's like, they kind of had it right at the end of Destiny 1 when they had the record books in place, so you knew what you were working towards, and like nice little rewards for completing certain tiers of challenges that were present in the book.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think doing it in kind of a record book way would be the thing to do, but I don't know how you'd implement that at all, other than say, "Oh yeah, we're introducing record books." It'd have been nice for it to have been there from the start. I know, I reckon there'll be one for the end of the first year of Destiny 2, but I don't reckon it will turn up until at least like April, May time next year. But yeah, that's about that. But you know, we need to wait until then to see where they go with it, because there's still things that haven't actually been released into the game yet, like Iron Banner, which is one of the PvP modes. We don't know what form that's going to take, or how it's going to affect anything, what the drops are going to be like either, and how those will affect the whole balance of the game. So there's still a lot of things that need to be explored from the game, but I'm already kind of tired of it. Like, except from playing with friends, it doesn't have anything to draw me back in day after day. Um, Whereas before there were things to do,
Yeah.
things to achieve with the record book and the progression system that they had. It was great, and now less great.
So for you, you'd say one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah, they've definitely, like, it definitely feels very nice to play. Um, but yeah, it needs more to it. And that's simply what I feel right now.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're buying a game, I know this is going to be something that you said that things are going to be drip fed out as it goes through. You kind of know that buying the game because that's how they've kind of like done everything else as they've done so
Hmm.
far. But it kind of feel to me you would feel it's a bit incomplete as a game where effectively it's a game that's expecting you to play it again multiple times every single week, but after like a few weeks you're kind of like, well, done. And
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Oh well. Yeah, it's
that's an
crazy
interesting because
time.
I always trying to wonder kind of like how they draw people into kind of like these environments because there's there's the potential of what Anthem is going to do at some point in 2018
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
this kind of subculture which has been generated for Destiny. I don't think whatever it stated is then. I don't think they would lose people to Anthem, but it's more the question of I think whether Anthem it then gets enough people kind of getting on that it then could pull people away because they're just like, well, more friends are playing Anthem than they are playing Destiny. So then,
Yeah.
as you're saying, the reason why you're playing it is a social aspect more than the actual gameplay aspect. Whether
Hmm.
that starts to pull people away.
Yeah, it certainly could do. Like, yeah. If there's a game everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna go and play this game," like, I've heard good things about Path of Exile, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to give that a try out." Luckily, I can play that single player, so I can do that, and it's on PC and Xbox One, whereas I play on PS4 and PC mostly. And so I can just jump on the PC and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to jump into that," especially as it's single player. Um, and I know some people that are playing it, actually, so that kind of helps. Um, but I don't know what point I was trying to make. No. Um, but yeah, it just seems like when another game comes along that people want to jump into, I'd rather jump along with them. Like, I didn't jump along with people towards Overwatch, because I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, and I haven't played that style of game before. And even now, like, now definitely isn't the point to get into it. The community is toxic, as reported by the developers, and every time anyone I know plays it, they seem to have a miserable time. So I'm just like, well, I don't want to deal with that because everyone seems to be the most miserable ever.
Yeah, but I
So,
find that happens with almost any MMO sort of game or
yeah.
multiplayer, massively kind of like online multiplayer game. At a certain point, kind of like you either get so invested that you hate the change that basically gets brought about, which is trying to make the game better, or you feel that not enough change is being brought out to make the change better, make the game better. Like it nerfs the exploit that you've managed so brilliantly to be able to kind of do, which has made you a really good player, and then you're just like, oh well, I'm now shit because I was really good at doing this thing that everybody hated, but it made me fucking awesome, and now
Hmm.
I'm back to being crap again. So I can understand with those ones. Like I say, I put some time into Overwatch to start off with, but eventually it's just like it's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
there's only so many amount of times when I can say kind of no, you can't defeat someone by doing it like that. You just need to choose like one of these two characters and you can shoot them from long distance and we'll kill them. Instead of
Hmm.
kind of going, no, you're going to try and take a short range person into a heavy. I just don't care. It's kind of you can just get annoyed and it's just like, well, that's just sadly the way it's going to work. And but then yeah, you just kind of what's the next? What is that next game that will
Yeah.
draw people into a multiplayer world who haven't been there before. Because if one could
Yeah.
draw, if one is ever capable of drawing me in, it's gonna be fucking good. Not just because
Yeah.
I'm picky, but kind of like if it gets me in, it's gonna get a shed load of other people in because they'll jump in before I ever would. So
Hmm.
I'm always going like I almost slightly fear for the time that I kind of get a a multiplayer game, online game that I really get in. I go like, oh, this is amazing because I'm like I could just throw so much time away that I do other things into that if I find it that enjoyable.
Hmm. Thank you everyone for listening. This is midway through this episode. We will continue next week. Thank you, Russell, for being my guest this week. Where can we find you across the internet?
You can find me at Russman2K across most gaming websites and at RESOM on Twitter. Thank you very much for having me, my good man.
No problem. I can be found across the internet at DestroyTomMong at Etherfar. That's YTHAFAR. Thank you everyone for listening. Have an exciting week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.